Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. If Zhou did not have a peak trial card, he might have chosen to retreat. In the past, his disciples and elders would usually fight before him. However, there was no need for that today. Zhou looked up slowly as the locust-like cultivators swarmed toward him. Since time immemorial, there has never been peace that was won without the spilling of blood. If you dig, you'll certainly find human bones under the soil of peaceful lands. Men have gone on battlefields, chased away wild animals, protected their homes, defended their lands, and held the borders. Kill them. Justice lay with those who had numbers. Once an individual became a part of a mob, their will would become collective, and they would blindly and stubbornly charge forward. They would easily lose their ability to think for themselves and would be blind to concrete evidence. They were radical and fanatic. This group of cultivators was taken aback when they saw Zhou advancing instead of retreating. He unleashed a blast of energy as he charged into the swarm of locusts. Energy sabers and energy swords gathered at this moment and shot out. Meanwhile, Zhou's energy glowed blue and stopped all the attacks from reaching him. He stopped moving when he was at the heart of the swarm of locusts. A blue lotus was blooming under his feet, and his body shone with a faint blue light. To gain the power to silence everything, to maintain and manifest samadhi. Like light and shadow, permeating everywhere while staying still in samadhi. The power to silence everything. When the blue lotus fully blossomed, Kubo of Yuan'er nation shot toward Zhou with a red dagger in hand. He shouted, "You've fallen into our trap. This is the super heaven grade, spotless dagger. This is a blade given by the royal tutor." Zhou only looked at Kubo from the corners of his eyes as the leaves from the blue lotus shot toward Kubo, who was wielding spotless dagger. Bam! The power of silence attacked indiscriminately. It did not differentiate between friends and foes. Bam! 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 Ding! Killed 5 nascent divinity realm targets. Reward, 5,000 merit points. Killed 210 divine court targets. Reward, 2,100 merit points. The remaining kills have no rewards. The corpses rained down on the land. Kubo of Yuan'er nation, who took the brunt of the attack, watched as his arms fell off. The spotless dagger fell in the air as well. Zhou caught the dagger in his hand. Ding! Obtained the super heaven grade weapon, spotless dagger. Owner, Jiang Wenxiu. Refining needed before use. No. Kubo looked up as he plummeted. The loss of the spotless dagger made him forget about his own pain. His eyes were filled with fear as well when he looked at the blue lotus in full bloom. Creak. 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 The 4 huge flying chariots were also affected to varying degrees by the power of muting. Their frames were damaged and their decks cracked. Having lost many of their comrades, the remaining cultivators could only do all they could to keep the flying chariots afloat. Even moving through the air became laborious. With the locusts gone, the sky was clear for 10,000 miles. Zhou toyed with spotless dagger nonchalantly. Of the 4 elites, only the Rolian, Xiaoji, was left. Xiaoji retreated 100 meters through the air. Although they had the support from the royal tutor, the difference between their strength and Zhou was very clear. After witnessing Zhou's strength, he did not think this was a battle they could win through numbers alone. He was slightly flustered as he said, "Royal tutor, it's time for you to make an appearance." Alas, silence was the only reply Xiaoji received. Zhou stepped forward. He studied the 4 flying chariots. After 3 attacks, half of the 4 allied nations' forces had been taken out. This was especially true of their main force, 3 of them had been lost. No matter how many Brahmin Sea realm cultivators they threw at him, it would not make any difference. Finally, he shifted his eye to Xiaoji. "Xiaoji of Roli?" Pan Litian chimed in, "Xiaoji of Roli. He's ranked 8th in the Xia family." Zhou continued to advance. Xiaoji behaved as though he was facing his worst nightmare. He furrowed his brows as he looked at the advancing Zhou in fear. A voice from the deck rang in Xiaoji's ears. Xiaoji, fight. The 4 flying chariots rose. Hooded cultivators emerged from the decks of all 4 flying chariots. They were all shrouded by purple energies as they joined their palms together. Brahmic lullaby. The chanting that sounded like the buzzing of flies resounded across the sky. On the ground, the corpses were jerking and twitching to life. A combination of the Buddhists' Brahmic lullaby and witchcraft's puppet technique? Zhou only had a quarter of his extraordinary power left. He could not even force Jiang Wenxiu to show himself after killing 3 elites. Would he be forced to use a deadly strike card in the end? What a pain. While Zhou was deep in his thoughts, Xiaoji sped toward him like a phantom. His hand was extended before himself as he moved at top speed. Soon after, Xiaoji's avatar appeared. There were 8.5 leaves on the Wolf King avatar. 8.5 leaves. Zhou said disdainfully, "You have a death wish." Zhou's fingers shone with blue light again as the scripts of abandoned wisdom appeared between his fingers. Then, the opponent's palms collided. Boom. A vertical plane of energy burst forth. Everyone thought Zhou's shocking palm strike would certainly take Xiaoji down. However, when the dust settled, Zhou saw Xiaoji standing in front of him. Xiaoji's expression was blank, and his eyes seemed unfocused. The incantations from the 4 flying chariots did not stop and grew louder. The dead elites were controlled by the spell. They were now puppets that were swarming toward Zhou. Zhou gauged his own extraordinary power. It was empty. All of a sudden, Xiaoji stepped aside, and Jiang Wenxiu appeared in front of him. Jiang Wenxiu was hiding behind Xiaoji. At this moment, his expression was calm, and his smile was confident. Blood stained his right hand. It was Xiaoji's blood. Xiaoji had been dead since earlier. Whiz. A 150-foot avatar materialized behind Jiang Wenxiu. A red lotus blossomed under the avatar. 9 crimson leaves spun around the lotus, they were bright and dazzling. The 9-leaf royal tutor finally showed himself. Ming Shirin, Lang Luo, Pan Litian, and Yu Zhenghai were shocked. Jiang Wenxiu smiled faintly as he said, "I wonder if you're satisfied with this?" Xiaoji was already at the 8.5-leaf stage. He was the closest to the 9-leaf stage. Knowing Jiang Wenxiu, he would never allow Xiaoji to improve any further. Zhou looked down. The resurrected puppets were charging toward him in a frenzy without a care for their well-being. There were a lot of them, and they were more powerful now, fearless of death. Devoid of pain and emotions, the puppets formed the second swarm of locusts. Nevertheless, Zhou only stroked his beard and said with a smile, "I'm pleased." Jiang Wenxiu said, "You're capable of blocking spotless dagger. There's no doubt your blue power is of unknown origin. To be safe, I had them whittle away at your primal chi and energy. You've lost, you've utterly lost." Zhou looked at the locusts that were slowly closing in on him. Initially, he intended to kill Jiang Wenxiu with a deadly strike card. However, he realized now that just relying on the deadly strike card alone would not solve the problem he was currently facing. In the end, he only said, "Is that so?" At the same time, a peak form trial card appeared in Zhou's palm. Jiang Wenxiu retracted his avatar. He coordinated his movements at lightning speed with the locusts as he charged forward and launched a red palm strike. Master. Pavilion Master. If it were anyone else attacking, they would not have worried. However, this was the royal tutor who had attained the 9-leaf stage centuries ago. How could they remain calm? At the same time, Zhou shattered the peak form trial card. His Dantian Sea of Qi was instantly filled to the brim. The rich and plentiful power returned to him. 100 Tribulations Insight. A 150-foot avatar towered in the air. The golden lotus under its feet had 9 lifelike leaves that shone with golden brilliance. The locusts close to him were instantly repelled and fell to the ground again. Zhou's eyes were trained on Jiang Wenxiu as he said, "Let's see where you can run now." Jiang Wenxiu said expressionlessly, "So, you really are at the 9-leaf stage. You're an arrow at the final stage of its flight. You'll certainly lose." I'll let you have a taste of an arrow at the end of its flight, then. Lu Zhou moved swiftly. Grand technique. Naturally, the grand technique of a 9-leaf cultivator was far more powerful than an 8-leaf cultivator. In just a blink of an eye, Lu Zhou had appeared in front of Jiang Wenxiu. He extended his hand. Abandon wisdom. Boom. A palm seal that was almost the size of a 9-leaf avatar descended on Jiang Wenxiu. Jiang Wenxiu's palms glowed red. His red avatar collided with abandon wisdom. Boom. The air turned turbulent as energies ricocheted everywhere. Retreat. Fall back. The passengers of the 4 flying chariots finally realized their own insignificance. They were like flies who could not even withstand the aftereffects of the battle between 2 9-leaf cultivators. They had to retreat. At the same time, Pan Litian shouted, "Fall back." Ming Shi'in did not have time to consider their ranks. He grabbed his eldest senior brother and sped backward. Forgive me, eldest senior brother. Nobody had to worry about Lang Luo. He cultivated the Dao invisibility. He was more adept at fleeing compared to the others. Abandon wisdom practically lit up Lu Lan's skies. It was as though the sun was shining in the sky at this moment. The people, officials, and cultivators of Lu Lan, anyone who looked up would be able to see this strange but eye-catching phenomenon. The lights flashed alternately between red and white. Lu Zhou looked down and struck with his palm again. The Taoist 9 cuts hand seal. The scripts of power, energy, harmony, healing, intuition, awareness, and dimension swirled before they dropped down in a straight line. Boom. Jiang Wenxiu unleashed his red avatar again. He held his hands up toward the heavens as he descended 100 meters. He moved swiftly and returned to his original altitude. Lu Zhou followed suit. He appeared above Jiang Wenxiu, determined to always be above Jiang Wenxiu. Then, he pushed his hand down again. It was 5 consecutive strikes of abandon wisdom. Have you ever seen palm strikes that descended from the heavens? If a single strike isn't enough, I'll give you 5. Golden palm strikes filled the sky. Will you remain arrogant after receiving 5 palm strikes? Boom. 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 5 golden palm seals descended from the sky and struck the red avatar's crown, causing the avatar to plummet. Jiang Wenxiu grunted and spat out a mouthful of blood. As soon as he retracted his avatar, one thought appeared in his mind, run. Jiang Wenxiu wiped the blood off his mouth and leaped into the air. Lu Zhou summoned his avatar. At seemingly the same time, he unleashed his grand technique. Running away? No matter where Jiang Wenxiu ran to, Lu Zhou would always catch up with him, and he was always above him. Boom. When Lu Zhou's 150-foot avatar passed by the 2 huge flying chariots, the impact was so great that the flying chariots were shattered. Parts of the chariots broke off and fell from the sky. The chanting cultivators could only give up on hovering there and scattered. Jiang Wenxiu fled swiftly. His intention was for the cultivators on the flying chariots to hold Lu Zhou back. However, he did not expect Lu Zhou to give chase with his avatar. He looked up and asked in confusion, "You're not retracting your avatar? Why should I? I'm not in short supply of primal qi. Why should I retract it?" Jiang Wenxiu was perplexed. How could Lu Zhou spend his primal qi without restraint? He was sure that old villain Ji had exhausted much of his blue energy. He could not understand this no matter how he thought about it. The 2 huge chariots were shattered. Many cultivators scattered. They were worried that they would be caught in the fight. However, Jiang Wenxiu ordered, "What are you waiting for? Get him." The cultivators who abandoned their chariots looked at the 150-foot avatar. There was a stifling pressure that could hardly be expressed when they looked at the avatar. A mob was usually senseless. They would lose rational judgment and become extremely fanatic. However, when the mob was faced with absolute and crushing strength, they would return their senses. This mob of cultivators was finally returning their senses after they witnessed Lu Zhou's absolute strength. Look closely, Jiang Wenxiu. Lu Zhou raised his palm. Jiang Wenxiu was shocked. His instincts told him that Lu Zhou had yet to unleash his full strength up until now. Lu Zhou immediately launched dozens of palm seals into his surroundings. The Buddhist Great Vajra hand sign. The fleeing cultivators stared at the shining golden palm seals with their mouths agape. Jiang Wenxiu frowned deeply. He was greatly shaken, he had thoroughly underestimated Lu Zhou's strength. Have you been going all out since the beginning? The Great Vajra hand sign was swift and shocking. It was a powerful palm seal comparable to the Great Seal of Fearlessness. However, the ease in which Lu Zhou cast it made it seem like an ordinary skill. The Great Vajra hand signs in the air immediately took down the chanting cultivators in the surroundings. Ding! Killed 10 nascent divinity realm cultivators. Reward, 10,000 merit points. Killed 30 divine court realm cultivators. Reward, 300 merit points. The others aren't counted. With barely any time to catch his breath, Jiang Wenxiu moved swiftly again as he attempted to run. Whiz! Jiang Wenxiu was just about to unleash his grand technique when a palm seal descended on him from the sky. Did I allow you to leave? Boom! Without his avatar to support him, Jiang Wenxiu was sent flying like a fly that had been swatted away. Rich energy swirled around him. Avatar. Jiang Wenxiu suppressed his surging blood essence. He was forced to unleash his 100 tribulations insight again. The red 150-foot avatar stood under the golden avatar. Lu Zhou glanced at his remaining time. The royal tutor, Jiang Wenxiu, was the first person to have lasted this long when his peak form card was in effect. Jiang Wenxiu looked up and shot into his avatar. He directed his palms skyward, and his avatar followed suit. Countless red runes appeared on his palms immediately and arranged themselves into a huge energy sword. Do you really think that a 9-leaf cultivator has no tricks up his sleeve? Jiang Wenxiu pointed the energy sword upward. Lu Zhou had already prepared himself for this. He looked at the red runic energy sword as Unnamed materialized in his hand. Then, he formed an energy sword around Unnamed. Jiang Wenxiu's heart shuddered. Black runes? A desolate grade weapon? If Jiang Wenxiu had been surprised by Lu Zhou's ceaseless ultimate skills, the endless supply of primal qi, and constant maintenance of his avatar, the appearance of the black runes struck fear in him. He was not even afraid when Lu Zhou struck with his blue energy. Retract. Jiang Wenxiu was frightened now. Too late. Unnamed, which wrapped in black runes, fell down. The red energy sword cleaved into two, and Unnamed continued to fall toward the red avatar. Jiang Wenxiu forcibly retracted his avatar. He struck his Dantian Sea of Qi and continued moving swiftly. Red flames emerged from his body at this moment. He chose to ignite his Sea of Qi. Lu Zhou kept up with his pace. His methods were crude and simple. He retracted Unnamed and sent a palm seal downward. Boom! Jiang Wenxiu grunted. Lu Zhou kept up with him while maintaining his avatar. Whether it was in terms of speed or condition, Lu Zhou was far superior to Jiang Wenxiu. After burning his Sea of Qi, Jiang Wenxiu sped up. He made his way east. Alas, he discovered it was futile. However, he did not give up. Only one thought remained in his mind: run. The sky was dyed red at this moment. The red runes Jiang Wenxiu had accumulated for centuries that could kill 9-leaf cultivators were as fragile as a piece of paper before Lu Zhou. Do you think you can run away from me? Lu Zhou's thunderous voice rang from above. Jiang Wenxiu sped forward 10 consecutive times. When he looked up, Lu Zhou's 150-foot golden avatar was still towering above him. As the 9-leaf avatar moved, it did not matter if it was mountains or forests, everything was flattened. It left only destruction in its wake. Lu Zhou did not care. He had limitless primal qi. He would not do this card justice if he did not go all out in his battle. Jiang Wenxiu looked up. Why? There are many strange things in this wide world. Humans are only a small part of a greater whole. Do you really think you can fool the entire world? Lu Zhou raised his palm. A golden palm seal dozens of times larger than the ones before descended from the sky. The frightened birds took flight in all directions. The fishes of the rivers leaped out in an attempt to flee. A single leaf of his could obstruct other people's vision. A single palm of his could cover the sky. Jiang Wenxu's eyes were bloodshot. Over the years, he had enjoyed a high status and was the most powerful person here. How could he come to terms with this end? Foolish humans. You insignificant beings. You will certainly pay a heavy price for your idiocy in the end. Jiang Wenxu summoned his avatar. The red glow of his avatar and the golden lotus were much brighter than before. He unleashed all his 9-leaf power in an attempt to block Lu Zhou's mighty palm strike. He directed his palm seal upward. Could the ant shake the tree? Boom. A shockwave rippled out for 100 miles. The mountains, rivers, and trees were all flattened. The sound wave spread across the ground into the surroundings. The other tribesmen cultivators from the 12 allied nations looked east. The cultivators inside Lu Lan's ancient city stopped whatever they were doing as they listened to the rumbling that was reminiscent of a violent earthquake. Although Jiang Wenxu had unleashed all his power as a 9-leaf cultivator, he only managed to stop the huge palm seal for a few seconds. Then, the huge palm seal pressed on unimpeded. Boom. This palm strike was not only the manifestation of the 9-leaf stage's power, but it was also the product of layers upon layers of Lu Zhou's limitless energy. Throughout the entire time, Lu Zhou had been layering palm seals on top of one another. He did not even know how many palm seals he had unleashed. Only when the palm seal reached the ground did he stop. Everything was quiet. Lu Zhou kept his avatar activated. He looked at the timer. 15 minutes had passed. He still had half of the time left. Where the palm seal struck, there was a 5-fingered pit. Lu Zhou sensed the movements around him. Although he was in peak form, he had to guard against the possibility of the royal tutor fleeing with other methods. As he waited, he did not retract his 150-foot avatar at all. No birds or beasts dared to get close to Lu Zhou. It was deathly quiet. Lu Zhou looked at the pit. Jiang Wenxu lying in the pit, facing the sky. His chest was stained red by his blood. The palm seal had shattered his avatar. On top of burning his sea of qi, his cultivation base was now forfeit. He suddenly exhaled and chuckled. When Lu Zhou heard Jiang Wenxu's forlorn laughter, he knew the so-called imperial tutor had completely given up. There were too many emotions contained in Jiang Wenxu's laughter: contempt, discontentment, helplessness, resentment, unwillingness, and acceptance. You've won. Jiang Wenxu's voice was extremely frail. You thought you could win? Lu Zhou asked. So what if you've won? Jiang Wenxu comforted himself as he said, the 7 allied nations have departed a long time ago. Great Yan will become a living hell. Lu Zhou glanced in the direction of Liang province. I wouldn't be so sure about that if I were you. At this moment, Lu Zhou finally retracted his avatar and dove. The fiend monk hand seal grabbed Jiang Wenxu. You? What are you trying to do? Jiang Wenxu asked, puzzled. Lu Zhou looked in Liang province's direction. He moved swiftly. Realization dawned on Jiang Wenxu. He said, you're trying to rush back? Give up. We are both losers in this battle.